Welcome to day 6 of landscape painting challenge, and today we have misty forest scene. I have my paper, 300 GSM watercolor hot pressed paper, and outline is in forms like more of a spikes, not greeneries that we see in reference photo, just because I know that some parts of this landscape, the misty part, will be very pale, and if there will be graphite lines too thick, too wide than the actual greenery that I will be painting, those graphite lines will be visible. So that's why I only have outlines as very, very thin spikes. So I have space to cover with watercolors. Now with an elastic eraser, I'm removing excess amount of graphite off the paper. All the unnecessary graphite marks, we don't want to have them. They will only smudge and become more dirty visible. This misty forest scene is quite transparent. There will be like literally few layers. All the mist is one layer, and it's better for you if you are like more of a beginner to watch this tutorial, the technique that I will be using, and then maybe watch again and do it on your own. First, I will wet all surface, apply watercolor mixes where we see in reference photo, and while the surface is still moist, I will start to apply those evergreens that are the furthest ones, that we see are more deeper in the mist, not the ones that are in front. Those gonna be the last ones, but the very, very misty ones. So we need to move quite quickly in order to cover everything with the watery layer, then apply with watercolors and apply few greeneries that are in the mist. But if you can't manage do it in one take, you can apply water, then apply watercolors for the mist, and then if the surface will be dry, you can apply water layer and continue. The effect will be the same. But maybe watch first how I do it and then repeat with your painting. For the first layer of water and watercolors, I will be using flat brush. This is this one. Then I will be using this one. This is round squirrel brush. Then I will be using round synthetic brush. Hold it in my hands and I'm looking for it. Round synthetic brush number 9. And for the greeneries, I will be using fine tip brush number 4 to make those branches and needles super small details. Now first, let's mix watercolors. These evergreens, we see that the mist is very cool. It's, I guess, early morning, no sunlight, and cool weather. And for that, I'm taking perylene green with a touch of, let's try ultramarine blue. Always test on a piece of paper, see how it looks. Very beautiful color, but I see from reference that there's more of green in it. So I'm adding more of perylene green. And let's add a touch of lemon yellow. See how it will look. It looks more greener than the first mix. But I will leave this for the upper part and some misty areas. Then I need a slightly more intense this color. So I'm taking perylene green, more perylene green, a little bit more. then ultramarine blue. Wash my brush. I want to have clean brush in my lemon yellow, and I add lemon yellow. Yes, I like this color, really nice color. This is the green, the more to the blue side, something in the middle. This is more to the green for the evergreens that we see. This is more of a misty area. These are trees. And then the very front one, Perlin green again. I'm taking more of lemon yellow. A little bit more of lemon yellow. And I will see how I will manage the very lower part trees. Maybe we will be using some white pigment of gouache or lead white color to manage get some lighter parts. First, we need mist, very far trees that are in the mist. Now, after mixing watercolors, be sure that you have clean water. For that purpose, I have 2 water jars. One is for mixing and cleaning brush. Other one is for applying watercolors. Paper towel, where I'm drying my brush. So first, I'm zoomed out so you can see the whole paper as I paint. And I go apply water everywhere. Water is just enough for watercolors to be moved. No puddles. I'm lifting papers so I can check and you can see that there are no puddles, but everything is evenly moist. So you with brush can control where watercolors are going. Not watercolors are controlling you, but you are in control. So I'm taking Perlin green with ultramarine blue and little touch of lemon yellow. And starting from upper corner where we have slightly darker, there we have a little bit more. And here and there. Then we have a really light area. Everything here can't stay completely white. This is still, there is color. It's very light and pale. If needed, with paper towel we can remove some parts. And applying this color, very, very light color, everywhere. Evenly, transparently. Moving quite quickly. In some areas, for example here, it's a little bit more. Definitely here we see more. And it goes in some areas. And with paper towel, if needed, you can also lift and smoothing, blending, moving quite quickly. And this mist that is we see, it's not completely smooth and uneven. There are some darker and some lighter areas, as well as here a little bit more can be added on top. And now, while the surface is still wet, I'm taking finer tip brush and adding watercolors for the trees. This one is lifting out a little bit because maybe it's too wet, so it spreads too quickly, but I can lift and make it more thinner. Then and movement is very tiny brush strokes. You are creating this illusion of a tree, and then smoothing lower part because it disappears in the mist. Then we have very small movement of brush, creating the illusion of trees, branches, with tiny brush strokes. And if needed, smooth out with clean and dry brush. It blends into the small movement. This tree is becoming bigger and bigger. And then it slowly starts to disappear into the mist. There should be no crisp edges with trees that are deeper in the mist. They're like very pale. Now my surface starts to get drier than required. So what can I do? I'm taking my brush, cleaning it entirely so it's clean, and applying moist. Now, and again it blends really beautifully into the background of this composition. Carefully. This tiny, don't rush this, even if you feel pressure a little bit of the moist surface, but as you noticed, I reapplied water, and it's better to move slower here to create really thin branches for these trees. You can always reapply. There's another one here. They're very somewhere far away in the scenery. They are not so visibly clear, these trees, but still from the reference we can see trees and branches, so we need to recreate here as well. Don't rush, don't try to use bigger brush or create more bolder brush strokes. Here it's dry again, so I'm dipping my brush in water, slightly removing so there's no puddle, just a little bit moist. You see, there's no. And applying again with tiny brush strokes. Slowly adding new with tiny brush strokes. I'm leaving here a little gap. There will be a darker tree And there's another one. Then we have here, skipped one. And even I try to make those pencil lines really small, and light, they're still visible. So be very careful with outline. Don't make them too strong, don't push. This is a really light layer. And there's tree very, very far away, very, very light. Smoothing. End of tree we are smoothing. Now here we have more. Tiny brush strokes. And blending into the mist. Here are one tree here that's also in the mist. 1, 2. Constantly checking with the reference. That is something you need to do all the time. Maybe too moist, you can remove with paper towel. It's always in my left hand. I'm painting with right, and paper towel is in my left hand. And then there's another tree here. Tiny brush strokes. The more tinier, the more realistic these evergreens are going to look. If they're gonna be big, bold brush strokes, then it will not look realistic. Now let's check this layer is almost dry. The paper is moist because to touch it feels cold. It means that there's moist inside the paper, but not on top. And this is perfect for the next round of trees that are more visible than these ones in the mist, but they are not as crisp as the very front ones. So now, and there are even those that are becoming more visible, they have even more crisper and visible details. So don't rush here. Study, reference how those evergreen tree branches are built. I am doing with tiny brush strokes as I'm applying, and then this tree on top, it's visible very clearly and crisp, and then it starts to fade into the mist. So I'm applying water, and now it fades into the mist. Amazing. And then it disappears completely like this. If we will need a little bit more darkness on top, we can add that later. Now the same will go with the next ones. First, they are quite visible with tiny brush strokes for branches, and then a little bit moist, it fades away into the mist. Just a trick of technique. And then it disappears completely. Now next one again. It's here. First it's visible. Tip of the tree is visible. Look carefully how branches are, how they look. little brush strokes of sticking out, and then very small amount of water in your brush. Then this evergreen fades away into the mist, and then it disappears completely, creating these different types of mist area. Here's the very light area. Also here we have, now let's see this one. And if you will have some extra tree or will leave some trees out, don't get stressed about that. You can get creative here. Just see the approximate guidance of the composition and the technique, and you're good to go with some creative approaches as well. Maybe more, maybe less. It's up to you how you create this painting. Just understand this technique. And now a little bit moist here. Little detail. This one maybe goes a little bit further dark, and then it blends into the mist area. And then we have here this one, more visible but still in the mist, so I'm really small amount of water applying, and I want to have it in the mist but more visible than the other ones here. Let's make it slightly bigger. And then the mist starts to become lesser here and more of greenery is visible. So I'm just blending color. So it looks like more mist is here and lesser here. A little bit blending on these edges, they're not so crisp. Okay, now we have this tree here darker. The tip is darker, so I want to add watercolors only slightly darker on tip, and clean my brush and smooth. Then I see that this tree is slightly darker. Moist layer, and then it blends into the surface of, into the mist area. Let's see, this one here needs a little bit more crisper tip. And this one as well, but then cleaning and smoothing, just a tip, slightly darker, like this. Now these ones here are more, these ones here that are left are more visible, and they are definitely much crisper, but I will not go with 100% darkness. I want to be sure that I'm adding the structure of the leaf. The branches are, in some trees, are facing, going up. The direction is up. There's a lot of space between branches that is visible. Straighten out. Tiny brush strokes, tiny brush strokes. Now, they are becoming more greener, more green. Of course, we will not have as much details as we have here in the reference. I will start adding this one here. And look carefully at the branches. They are going up. They're facing to this direction, the sky. A little bit darker, more intense. Then applying, adding more crispness. And then this one, the big one, goes behind this one that is lower here. And it's darker than the one that is in front. We will have some white gaps, but that's completely okay. This is a painting, not a reference photo. Carefully applying, and it goes. Applying more, taking more watercolors for darker layer, because we want to add it behind the small one. Then later we can go into detailing with making this area more precise between those branches, adding more watercolors. Let's add next one here. This one is even darker and goes behind this one. Small, tiny details. Some little brush strokes of recreating these. Like even needles are visible from this distance. Going behind this tree. I want to add a little bit of more perlin green here. Touch of even more perlin green. And touch of lemon yellow and ultramarine blue. Not so much. Don't be afraid to mix another part of watercolors. If the color tone will slightly be different from the previous one, your painting will only benefit from slightly different color tone. Adding more. And this is going behind. They are tree branches. They have more space in between them, what I notice. Applying darker. making this tree that I'm working right now going behind the one that I'm painting here. Blending so it's not. And there are few ones that are in the mist area that I will apply. Slightly moist surface. Blend this into the mist behind these trees. Then there are a few more. Let's add a few more. It will be more interesting. Let's add this one into the mist area. This is going to be in the mist. Blending. Then there are a few trees here down that are, let's add this one here to the more smoother and blend. Then do we have another ones here? Maybe few. I see some beauty of studying reference. The more we look, the more we start to notice. And here I notice another tree visible, but very, very pale. And then it disappears. So I'm blending in. Then this is very, very misty, but then we have a crisp one here. So I'm taking watercolors. Some details more. So this is really like a nice watercolor study and project. You don't need to really think about too much of mixing watercolors because I'm using like same pigments, perylene green, ultramarine blue, and lemon yellow in different proportions, and thinking only about how to make these trees more realistic, how to get the crisper ones in front of the misty ones. So this is a really nice project to do. And the result is quite effective. You can get a really nice result here. So as it reaches more lower part, it becomes, the branches are becoming longer. There are some, and be creative with your brush strokes. This is where, when you look up very, very close to these brush strokes, they don't make sense. But if you look from distance, then it looks as it is a forest full of evergreen trees. Now we have more greener here. Then it goes in front of this one. Let's go darker on top. And same. And as you see that the tree branch goes more up, and then there's little branches that are hanging from those longer, bigger ones. With few brush strokes recreating the look that I see in reference. And then it goes behind this one. Then we have another one here, which is very thin at the top. And then some longer branches start to appear. Be very, very observative of reference. Everything is there. In fact, all information for realistic painting can be found in a photo. With abstract art, it's different. You need to imagine stuff. But with realistic painting, everything is in front of you with a good, if there's a good reference. And then as it goes lower, it starts to become more richer with branches, colors. It's really beautiful forest. A little bit darker. And then it goes on top of this slightly where we have a misty one that is behind. It stays behind. And then we are adding more. Leaving it behind. And now slowly, misty forest is appearing. So this whole tutorial is time consuming just because these trees you need to manage to paint them carefully. But the whole technique is the same all throughout this tutorial with the misty ones or with the crisper ones. Get a hang on of this technique, and misty forests can be painted on, and it's really beautiful. You can do a much bigger one size, just use bigger paper and bigger brushes, and then you can manage really nice and big scenes of misty forest. So now I'm doing here a lower one, which is more crisper and darker. I think I will not be adding lead white. These white spots that we have will be a nice addition to this whole, so I don't think that I need here. Now continuing with adding more. We can add more darkness to get some branches behind other tree. and finish up this part. Then we have a crisper one here, also very small at the top. Then some longer branches, and then the whole fuller body of that tree. Small brush strokes. Don't rush here with adding bigger and bolder brush strokes. This is really not the painting you should be hurrying up. Then I want to add more crisper here and brighter in green color. Here is more lemon yellow. Try to. This is a slightly tricky area to manage. Some trees be in front and some in the back. You can even go with the slower approach to manage to cover them. If we see from reference, the reference gives us information that in the middle these trees are darker, and then by the where is the outer part of branches, that's where it is much lighter. So this part I want to add more perlin green and more darker, create depth in my painting, carefully going in between these branches of the smaller trees. Tonal values for depth, and it does the thing really nice. We can add that also as the detailed. Then I also want to add it here. It was something. Then it goes here and smooth as it goes higher. Nice. Then continuing with this one. Then it goes fuller on top of this one that is in the mist. And then it becomes darker as it reaches the one that we have here in front. Carefully, a few brush strokes painting around the one that is in front, making these branches longer. And then it connects here. Then another one, more brighter green, is here. That will go to the front. Finer tip brush does really nice work here. Brighter green, can even add a little bit more of lemon yellow here and there on the outer tips. slightly darker, moving it behind. And then more of Perlin green as it goes here behind these two in front. Carefully, with the tip of my brush, I'm applying watercolors in between branches of the front trees. And this little trick does the work of creating depth in this painting. Yes, looks like. Now we have more trees, longer and crisper than this one in the mist area. Again, it's slightly thinner on top. There are even some trees that branches are completely facing upwards. First small area and then branches are going up. And then they as the branches become bigger, they start to bend down. Observation is key. This one. Let's add these two. Let's move a little bit closer so you can see how I do these trees. Now here's a closer look, and as I told you before, the closer you get to the painting, the more chaotic these brush strokes look, but they create the illusion. And with landscape painting, we are not aiming for super realistic result. If we look very close, it's supposed to be looked from distance. We need to create the illusion and the appearance of what we see from reference. It's impossible in such a small area create realistic trees, branches, leaves. We are creating look, we are creating texture. Going behind this one. This is where it's gonna be really full. It will start to become full here. This is a full area. I want to add a little bit darkness here. You're gonna still don't rush. This is a really full area. And in the middle, these trees are darker. And on the outer part, branches are becoming lighter. And as it reaches lower part, it also becomes brighter. So I'm taking green mix where it's more lemon yellow, and I want to make it darker so it goes behind this smaller tree. and out of my paper into the washi tape area. A darker inner part so it's not so flat and even. And a little bit more of 𝗲𝗏 green here. I want to make this tree even darker. This painting should be looked at from distance. That's where it will make sense. Then these one in front look very much flat. So I will add a little bit darkness inside of these trees, and what I will do, wash my brush, clean it in paper towel and blend so there's transition like this and it looks more three-dimensional. But again, with landscapes we are more creating the illusion, the appearance. We are not aiming for painting needles and each single branch or a little stick that is sticking out. It's more of creating the appearance. Now we have more crisp trees on this part. One is longer. One is longer. And they are quite big straight away, quite full, and branches are facing up. You can pause the video and take a look how these trees look. They're little secondary branches hanging down. And branches are facing up. And as it goes lower, branches are becoming heavier. They start to curve, more becoming straighter, more darkness and more fuller in the middle. But they are still not going down, not going evergreens. They don't have branches that are completely hanging down. Even on Christmas, when we bring in home Christmas tree, in the first days, all branches are facing up. And then as days pass, tree starts to fade away and branches start to go down with all Christmas ornaments. Some little secondary branches. This one looks quite chaotic in reference. Some are facing up, some are facing more straighter. So we can also paint it as not so even as to the both sides. One side goes way higher. And then some straighter with little, we can express ourselves, really creatively express. And then it becomes fuller. Taking a little bit more watercolors. And as you can see, this is second layer. This painting is done in 2 layers. First layer was wet, light, transparent. And now the second one is more crisper, more detailed. Then we have another one here, and it's really dark, what I can see from my perspective of reference. I will go and add it on top, but darker. Maybe some little darker here, because we don't know the perspective where this photo was taken. Oh, this ending I don't quite like. I want to make these branches, these trees slightly darker, and behind the ones that are in front. It's up to us now. We can add more for tonal values for some details. What I want to try, I don't quite like that in some parts I see graphite, and my painting here is completely dry. So try to erase very carefully. Don't push too hard. And graphite is erasing because the layer of watercolor is very light and only one layer. So after very light first layer, we can still erase graphite. But the importance that the paper, you need to be sure 1000% that the paper is dry. And if graphite lines are super light, if you push too hard, you will never be able to erase them, even if there would be no watercolors at all. So always try to hold your tools lightly, graphite pencils lightly, so you can erase any moment, anything that you don't like. And I have erased almost, I would say 90% of graphite lines, and I like the result much better. It looks more neater. Let's zoom out and show you the finished result. Here's the finished version, and I will remove washi tape. Be sure that paper and your painting is dry when you are removing washi tape, and pull away from your painting. Even if the paper will start to tear, it depends on paper quality, washi tape quality. If you are pulling away from your painting, then the paper will tear also to that side, not towards your painting. Okay, now here's the last one. And voila, this is the result of day 6. Thank you for joining. Thank you for painting. Hope you learned something new from this small tutorial and small painting. See you tomorrow.